This is your chance to experience the NFL like never before. The Irish NFL show is touching down stateside, and we want you on the team. Explore iconic football towns: Chicago, Green Bay, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and make memories with fellow Irish NFL fans on the trip of a lifetime. We've partnered with Bernard Hayes Travel, a trusted travel partner with over 30 years' experience. We'll look after everything: flights, accommodation, transfers, match tickets, social events, and everything in between. An unforgettable experience. Picture yourself in the stands at Soldier Field, Lambeau, or MetLife, roaring on your team. Register your interest today at irishnflshow.com/tours. Don't just watch the game, live it. Yes, if you're joining us late, irishnflshow.com/tours is where you can register your interest. Well, Shane, we lived that game in Lambeau over the weekend, exactly as promised. It's a rivalry that is the NFL's oldest and most frequently played in the history of the NFL. Hasn't been particularly enticing for the last decade or so, but boy, it was back with a bang in that game at Lambeau. Packers looked like they were going to dominate early. Bears do what they've done most of this season: bounce back, put the ball on the floor, and punch holes in what was previously a pretty indomitable Packers defense. Bears driving to tire, win the game at the end. Great play by Keyshawn Nixon in the end zone to intercept. Like, this game had everything.
This game did have everything, and as well as that, it's really nice when you get a rivalry between two teams who are really coming to the boil at the same time. I have to say, if I was trying to go on irishnflshow.com/tours and trying to register my interest as to where in the country I would like to go to get a chance to see the Chicago team and Green Bay in both of those stadiums, but also to see these teams being electric, as there probably will be now for the next few years, is going to be something great. I mean, it's really interesting watching most of the reaction today. Is that the Bears lost, but out of all the losses you could have asked for, it's one that still confirms that they are legitimate. That even though there's a lot of close wins in over the course of the season, there's still a team to be reckoned with. There's still a force that you must prepare for and be ready for, and are still going to be very much in the conversation come playoff time. I certainly think so. I haven't completely lost faith in them, even though in the first half, their offenses really couldn't get going. I think that to me is a disappointment, because Caleb and Co kept everything interesting in the second half, even though he seemed allergic to staying inside the pocket. Even at times when he didn't have to come out, he came out and he limited himself to only having one side of the field to throw to, which is generally his right-hand side. It definitely seems to, I don't know, when there's like a lean at the snooker table, it feels like he seems to always go to that sideline of Lambeau in the fourth quarter. So that's an area that needs to be improved. Obviously, third down efficiency, you're looking at about 50% for Chicago, which again, when you're looking for where's the clutch gene, where's the next step in the Chicago development, that's something which is coming in. But I mean, how can you really, really be disappointed if you're Chicago when you get beaten by a Packers team who threw some lovely touchdowns, and Jordan Love just looked confident in what they were able to do, a defense that seemed alert and awake for most of the game, and it took control in the first half. And as I generally say here, one good half of football is not good enough to win in the NFL, especially when you get into the old squeaky bum time of the year. And that's just the case for the Chicago offense. But no, I think these two teams match up again, not this coming weekend, but next week. That's going to be a humdinger of a game as well. I know there's a bit of personal spice between Ben Johnson, because he said, I really like beating Matt LaFleur twice a year. And Matt LaFleur is like, I don't even know who Ben Johnson is. Which of course is going to keep things rolling. But but to me, I think what I need to see more of is that Caleb Williams could just calm down a little bit in the pocket, keep the field open to him, but make sure that, especially in that first sections of the game, that they take control earlier and don't wait until they have to read defenses to change what their offense does. Because I felt like that's what they did yesterday. They saw what Green Bay were putting on the plate and then changed the plan in the second half to good effect, but it felt a little bit too late, and they were giving themselves, if you're always chasing a comeback, at what point does a good team just stop the comeback? And that's kind of what happened for Green Bay yesterday.
Yeah, I thought I'd be interested in your take, Brian. Obviously, I'm horribly biased, but things that we knew going into the game that were confirmed, there's no doubt that the Packers are Super Bowl contenders. Jordan Love is starting to round into the form of his life, and we know what he can do. We saw it against the Cowboys in Arlington a couple of years ago when they won that playoff game in his first season proper, even though he'd been sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years learning his craft. We know that Packers defense is among the best in the league. We know the Bears can run the ball as well as any team in the National Football League. We also know that the Bears defense is flawed, and we know that the passing game isn't where it should be. And it was interesting listening to Micah Parsons interviewed after the game by the sideline reporter Stacey Dales, and he was saying he found Caleb Williams mad annoying because he just couldn't lay it low for him. He said, I will get him, but he couldn't quite get to him and ended up spending a time on the sideline. He was gassed at a point in the second half where the Bears were just pounding the ball over and over again and finally able to do to the Packers what they'd done to the Eagles the previous week. Couldn't run at all really in the first half, but got it going in the second half and really looked like they had the Packers where they wanted to at one point, but, credit Green Bay. They were able to find explosive plays again and again. Love picked his passes beautifully, isolated receivers against safeties time and time again when he needed to, and got it done. But I thought, watching it, that's as well as the Packers can probably play. I thought the Bears actually have a lot of room for improvement, which gave me a lot of hope watching it, thinking, yeah, they're definitely... They came up short against a better team, a team that deserved to win over the course of the four quarters. The third and fourth quarter, you might say the Bears were on top for a good bit of that time. But I thought there was no complaints with the team that won. But this, to Shane's point, I think is going to be an intriguing rivalry for years to come, because it's hard not to appreciate the progress that the Bears are making now. They're winning games that they were losing last year, but they're improving as the season goes along. There's no way. And the nearest comparison I can think for this is the Bears' loss in Baltimore, where they started well. Ravens punched them a couple of times in the face, and then the game got away from them. They ended up losing by 17 points. That doesn't look like it's going to happen to this Bears team down the stretch. They look like even when they get floored, they can find a way to get back up. And Ben Johnson's commitments to the run game is admirable. It reminds me of what Mark Schlereth was saying to us when we interviewed him in the offseason, that he got mad at offensive coordinators who get away from the run when 2 or 3 runs don't go well. He said, you're running the ball so that you can set up the situation which the Bears had in the fourth quarter where the defense is gassed. Then you can run play action and you can really gut a team when you have them where you want them.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan probably needs to take notes of certain games in which he should have kept the effective run game going. He might have had a Super Bowl or two. It's weird when you watch an NFL game, and we've been here before in the past, Conor, and a lot of the points I'm making are very much we're on the same page. You watch a game over the course of 4 quarters and you say, okay, despite the team coming out on the wrong side of the result, when they play through again, you get that sense of the result may not be the same, the next time around. And we're going to have this very quickly Saturday week when they play each other, obviously going into the early hours of Sunday morning. But I felt as a total performance, I thought the Bears were the better side. I know there was patches in the first half where it took a while for them to get going, but you look at the game over the course of 4 quarters.
I don't think they were, though, with respect. And the execution was poor, particularly defensively. Somebody described it brilliantly, and I wish I could remember who said this in their report so I could attribute it properly. The Bears play bend and then break your heart on defense. They either get a turnover or you can blow them open, and the Packers were able to blow them open. The Bears tackling defensively was very poor, exemplified by that Josh Jacobs run, which set up the go-ahead touchdown for the Packers, where he ran through 3 players. Packers, on the other hand, when they needed the big tackles, when they needed the big stops, most notably on Monungai on the final drive, which sets up the fourth and 1 where Caleb takes a gamble and gets intercepted. They were there all day long. Their players stepped up and did exactly what they needed to do in all situations. The Bears condensed their performance into quarter and a bit.
I would say there's 2 explosive plays in the game that were heartbreakers for the Bears, and that's ultimately what got the Packers over the line. I know the drive at the end where you said they stalled them on the run game, but it was the nature of the 2 touchdowns I'm going to refer to. One before halftime, Conor, because there was very little time on the clock. You're thinking, most fans watching the game last night thinking, okay, the worst case scenario here for the Bears is that they're going to drive down and they're going to kick a field goal. Well, they go and get a touchdown, and then having got back in the game and tied it up to give away another big touchdown score to Watson. That's the crucial part of the game. Outside of those 2 players, how many used plays did the Packers offense have? They had some nice plays here and there, but I thought over the course of the 4 quarters, the Bears defense did a really good job on them, but with the exception of 2 big plays. I know Packers fans will turn around and say, yeah, but that's the nature of an offense in which we've put together here now. We're in a position to make those explosive. I get all that, but more about the timing of when those touchdowns happened were really significant. And if the only gotchas in the Bears defense performance for me. And as the game evolved, I thought the Bears offense was the better of the two. I said on the instant reaction, I know we spoke about it separately today. I didn't like the play called again. I know you've got a rationale as to why it was a good play call, and you haven't looked at it again. Even to your point, DJ Moore was clearly wide open, but he made the decision from going to the tight ends. But bearing in mind how well they played the second half in running the ball, I thought it would be more appropriate in that particular instance to try take the yard, and then obviously you're giving yourself 3 shots to win the game because ultimately they would have went for the 2 points in the end. But I think to your point as well, this isn't the Bears team that are getting punched in the mouth and then going away like that Ravens game or other games earlier in the season. This is a Bears team that now go, fine, we're behind. We now have a situation where we know how to evolve into games and get the job done. Fortunately, it could have been, but it wasn't.
And from a Packers point of view, Shane, they go away with something to think about as well. You look at how that Jeff Hafley defense was exposed in the running game in the second half, and I think if I'm the 49ers, if I'm the Seahawks, if I'm the Rams, all teams that the Packers are going to play one or more of those teams in the playoffs by the looks of it, the way things are going. They're all teams that could comfortably implement a similar game plan that the Bears did, where you had that Packers pass rush gassed, where Micah Parsons has to take time out on the sideline, where you're thinking, if that defense is back on the field quickly, the Bears are going to have their way with them.
Yeah, and what's also interesting from the Packers' point of view is I think they need to show the world that they don't always just play to the level of their opponents, because like their defense sees an offense which has a fantastic O-line, gets a quick start in the front and takes control. But yet when they're playing against lower ranked teams, they don't necessarily seem to show up. I think for me, it's more about making sure that when they're getting pressures, that they're still sort of covering at the right moments. I mean, they were able to get a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams last night, but then the wide receivers, even though Caleb's given them the more predictable side of the field that they're going on, they're letting separation happen, which we didn't necessarily see in other parts of the game. But not that I'm not worried about it, but again, consistency is key for what you're able to do at this time of the year. And the Packers defense, I think, has been able to show itself to be consistently inconsistent, particularly at the front line. And Micah Parsons, he'll play some great games, against great opposition. We saw them against, the Steelers and Sunday Night Football, how, if he picked a lane, he was great on the inside, but not great on the outside. Last night, he managed to get a lot of pressure on the outside, but then, have themselves out of the game for certain parts of it. So it's just about making sure that there's a level of consistency going further into the year. But I'm not quite pressing the panic button on it just yet, but they have a lot of difficult teams to play up for the rest of the season.
Brian, one quick point before we move on to the Bucks.
Yeah, I had a Packers fan today say to me, we might see the Super Bowl this Sunday, as in this is the game we might see in Santa Clara. The Packers are on the road against the Broncos this weekend. So a Broncos-Packers Super Bowl has been suggested by a few people who was reaching out to me today. Probably would make for a fantastic game, but I don't think Kieran O'Donovan and other Packers fans would be able to live with the stress of that particular game. And then
I'd be sitting beside Kieran O'Donovan watching this in Santa Clara, worrying about the Packers winning. No, that's
and are the Broncos winning? There's no happy ending there, Conor.
Who do you cheer against? Yeah,
rematch of Super Bowl 32 as well. Which the Broncos won. So I don't know if that's a result that you don't want more. It's definitely the result that I don't want more.
Great John Elway Netflix documentary, but it looks at the content that's been shared so far coming this Christmas.
Shane, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we were talking about them as a sneaky Super Bowl pick just a few weeks back. Really not having a good run in and upended by their division rival, the Saints, at the weekend in a game that really you would have thought was a gimme.
That's the nature of divisional football. Games that you think are gimmies end up turning out to not to be. And like the Saints have shown themselves to be able to do this against their divisional opponents over the last couple of years. And even when they play bad, they seem to burn themselves up for games like this. I think the key aspect here is, and look, like it's where we're saying this about Florida, but the conditions did kind of get in the way. There's a lot of sloppy play here, but the amount of missed tackles from the defense when Shook had the ball, when the Saints were passing around was just was very frustrating to watch. Actually, I mean, like when when you're willing on the Buccaneers to show themselves to still be at the level that we seen them play in the early parts of the year, and it just seems like the defense is just it's got to be just a bit soft. I'm not trying to knock down Tyler Shook being able to to make runs, which he does a lot better than make passes. When he was sort of taking control of certain parts of the game yesterday. I mean, like obviously, like that Shook pick to McCullen was ridiculous. It was a terrible pass from Tyler Shook, but then Tampa doesn't seem to really gain momentum from that and try to expose a team which made a ridiculous mistake as being quite clearly the bottom feeders of the division. Obviously, I mean, Evans being out is obviously hurting their offense, but it's the defense which I'm really struggling to comprehend in terms of scheme. I think that they didn't seem to read what New Orleans are doing in terms of when they were running, when Shook was able to run, where they're trying to contain him. They didn't do a great job of containing him at all. And then in the fourth quarter, just in the quality of tackling, that's a key area they have to improve on, because they're coming up against the Panthers twice in two key divisional matchups. And if they let Rico Dowdle run riot in either of those games for the Panthers, or if they let the Panthers get into a situation where they can keep things unpredictable, if your defenses can't read what's happening in front of you, you're going to end up getting picked up in key moments, as what happened yesterday.
Brian, I'm glad Shane mentions the Panthers, because they're the big winners here. They're on a bye, so they're well rested. The Bucs fall on their face in a game that I'm sure even in Carolina they were expecting would have gone the other way, and now they've got them lined up twice, and they have the division in their hands, basically. I mean, it's all in their hands to go and win it. If they win those games, they're going to come out on top, and they're going to be heading to the playoffs.
Yeah, they've got the Saints this weekend, which looks a very winnable game. Saints have played quite well lately. I think ultimately it's going to come down to kind of when they go into Tampa. Like, I could see them turning them over at home. Like, you had a great interview with Ron Rivera last week, his former head coach, and he even, he kind of questioned their form away from home in terms of going on the road, a mixed bag of results, but more so the nature of the results on the road. They've been fairly comprehensively taken care of on the road, but they've been really strong at home. I think ultimately it's going to come down to, can they get themselves, do they genuinely believe that they're at the level in which they can go into Tampa and win these games? When the weather in Tampa, it was a similar circumstance when the Patriots went down there and played there recently, Conor. When the weather is off in Tampa, the Bucs, they don't seem to be able to handle it. The road team seems to handle the situation better than the actual home team. I think that game is week 18. It makes for a great game, but even if they were to lose the home game, they'll probably still have a chance to go in there and win it. But it's the belief that this head coach has put in, and I believe we spoke last night about Bryce Young. Like, we're 2 or 3 years ago, we're talking about this guy is even going to be in the league in a couple of years, and now he's literally on the cusp of potentially shocking everybody. Because I think if the Panthers were to win the division, like, there's been some shocks this year, but this would be the biggest shock of the season for me.
Shane, another shock over the weekend, although not quite at that magnitude, was the Titans beating the Browns. A bit of a bottom feeder bowl here, but Brian was delighted because it advances the Giants' prospects of getting the number 1 overall pick. It just hasn't gone to plan at all for the Titans this year. On an interim head coach, Cam Ward really hasn't been well handled in his first season in the NFL. Big documentary series out on him at the moment. 0 star for the Titans organization for what they've done around him this season, but he did get the win over the weekend. Him up against Shedeur was an entertaining enough matchup in the end. 60 points in this one.
Yeah, it was, in fairness. Although the extent to which either quarterback was really the architect of that could be debatable, because Tony Pollard did most of the running for the Titans, running in 2 long-range touchdowns. And again, to the sooner point of what I was talking about with Tampa Bay, it seems like the Cleveland defense, excellently strong, you think to be putting tape up in the lead to try and prove themselves to still be the formidable unit, the best defense that people aren't talking about. And it looks like they're already in Cancun. That's just the way that they treated some of those 2 running plays in particular from Tony Pollard. Interesting with Shedeur is, like, he got a really nice pass to Jerry Jeudy, which ended up being a 60-yard touchdown. But then later on, it feels like every time Shedeur dropped back, he dropped back about 50 yards. He might as well have been in Michigan trying to make the pass. It was ridiculous. And it's like, talk about trying to stay in the pocket. He keeps running back and then running back again, and then trying to find his man and wonders why the pass keeps dropping shorter. He has to keep throwing it over the sideline because he's giving the Tennessee defense an entire, vista. Everything you see is where Shedeur can't throw the ball. So it was just an interesting one. I was watching back this morning. Just a point on the Titans. People are looking at this and saying, it's people who are fans of losing team get frustrated when they start winning at this time of year and say, look, we're going to be losing out on draft capital. I still think there's great value in teams, both the Browns and Titans, in this situation. And just being able to find victories, I think, in terms of the morale of the group, in terms of being able to tell yourself, not only and players trying to get jobs elsewhere, but just being able to sort of prove yourself that maybe you can build into the future. There's nothing like winning football that can help breed a future of winning football, even if draft capital. And we might be saying, when we're sitting here recording in February, actually being like, I don't know if that win against Cleveland might really help them out as third in the draft. But no, I mean, look, nice to see Cam Ward getting another victory in the league. He's had a tough go of it this year.
Brian, the thing about tanking is, and I remember reading an article about this, and it's the side you don't think about is, firstly, it's putting players at risk. Secondly, people are going to lose their jobs. So you want to see teams playing hard and doing their bit towards the end of the season. It was good to see both the Titans and the Browns putting it up to one another. Nothing really at stake other than pride, but it ended up being an entertaining game for all that.
Well, players are playing for their careers and their next port of call. Kind of like players who are with the Browns now and with the Titans may not necessarily be there next year, but they're thinking further afield in terms of trying to find themselves a team. Some players that are on the, I saw a number of players offensive line for Titans, and they're not necessarily journeymen, but they're not going to be there next year, and they're obviously thinking, I've got to solidify a performance here over the course of the next few weeks to put myself in the shop window, come free agents for these opportunities elsewhere. Because it's interesting, you see players like Zeit are playing now for the Titans. He had a fantastic career with the Ravens. He was with the Giants for a period of time. I think he's even with the Lions, and now all of a sudden he's down the wrong end of the league playing for the Titans. But to your touchdown there, like, the draft is what the draft is. We saw last year, we get so hung up 2 or 3 weeks toward the end of the season on teams down the back end who are having a difficult season around. They shouldn't win. The reality is on Sunday, like the Giants are a prime example this weekend. I know you joke earlier about them holding the first place in the draft. They won't by the end of the season. They're playing the Commanders this weekend. They've got the Vikings. They got the Raiders. They're all someone has to win these games. So inevitably, there'll be fallout from some fan base around, we had that pick. I think it's a case of, let's just see how it plays out. And ultimately, what will be, because there's some teams that are starved of a quarterback who have a lot of capital to play with, including those Jets. They're probably going to be the talking point of the offseason for me around draft period.
Mendoza!
That is the one.
Mendoza!
Yeah. I used to see you, Mendoza.
He's very much in God's camp. Anyway.
All day.
No disrespect to the religious people out there, but I mean, he must have spoke about God about 100 times more than he actually talked about the game.
Isn't that what American football is?
Yeah. Will he be able to deal with New York? That's an interesting one, because that's it.
I don't want to cut across to like the main talk, but like the thing about like there's a generation now of these like dork quarterbacks, and I mean that in actually a very like a affectionate way. And these are like they're great guys. You can guarantee they're not going to be caught, drinking at 4 a.m. on a Saturday night before the game is on. But like, can they? I'm looking at Mendoza. I'm like, don't feed him to the New York Jets wolves. He's going to be torn apart there. But anyway, we have a long off season to worry about that.
We do indeed. We have the AV Club on Wednesday. Got Thursday night football preview coming to you the following day. Then we're live again on Thursday evening, heading into the week 15 action. All 32 teams playing that weekend. All the byes are done. We say goodbye to the byes and we say hello to the end of the season.